Welcome to the mali-talkshow, where Mali and her guests are breaking through barriers and talk about topics close to their hearts.
We all have this spark that makes us wake up every day and do what we do. The things that I'm doing when it comes to impact female founder, raising strong community, having a fund that invests in diverse team and female founder is a need, is not something that's nice to have.
Hello, Brigitte Mohn, how are you?
Thanks, I'm fine, perfectly.
I'm very proud to have you here on my talk show. I know you are in Bielefeld, I'm in Berlin, and we are in touch for, I would say, several years already. And of course, I see fantastic things that you are doing. Let our, I would say, audience and listeners to enjoy the pearls and the good things that we can share with them today. So, Brigitte, before we introduce you, I would love you to speak about yourself and what is keeping you busy these days.
I'm basically the sixth generation of a Protestant media family owner company. And we belong to the Bertelsmann family, and our company is nearly 200 years old. So we are the sixth generations. I'm the one of six children, and working currently, or for then 20 years now, more than 20 years, in the family-owned family foundation. It's an operating foundation, not a funding foundation. And we do a lot of work with partners, changing the systems, prototyping new solutions in the area of healthcare and education, in the socio-economic setting, and as well in culture. And in addition, I have many other hats on. I'm as well in the supervisory board of our stroke foundation my mother founded, and in the supervisory board of the private university, Witten-Herdecke, and many, many other things around the family businesses. And I have two children, 12 and 16, a girl and a boy. And I think it's amazing that we're going back to normal after a long time after the pandemic.
You know, Brigitte, I live in Berlin for 7 years, already 7 years. You know, I came from Tel Aviv, as you know, and you are a very unique character, I would say, in the German ecosystem, in the German landscape. And this is why I really wanted to bring you to the talk show. Also, we are talking, I would say, in closed doors or in phone calls, more about the investment, the female investor role, the female founder role. I would like to focus also on you for a second, because we're talking a lot about the younger generation, the future of Germany and the education. And all of this, I know that it's really close to your heart and close to what you're doing. There's a lot of things that I'm involved in this as well. I want to hear your perspective when it comes to education. I also have two kids here, by the way, 19 and 17, a boy and a girl. And when it comes to the younger generation in Germany, what do you see there? Where we can be better, or where we can do better than what we are actually having today?
I think we really have to encourage young people to, and especially mothers and young women, to be curious about technical problems, global solutions, encourage them to be part of this group of pioneers, creating something new in the world that really has an effect on our societies and the environment. I think the traditional role that girls are not capable of being on the same level as boys is already deeply implemented in the German culture. And it hasn't changed over the years. So I think we see this in many countries. They're not really incentivated, and not only in school but later on in university as well, to go into the entrepreneurial startup arena and really found a new company. And I think it's even more. I think women are always seen as behind men in terms of being successful. And I think that's already rooted at the very beginning, when you come from kindergarten, going to school, going to whatever place in university, or going directly into the work or labor force. I think the encouragement of young girls to drive change is not very obvious. And I think we don't have enough role models, young female role models, that they are saying, you can do it. And I think that's crucial, that the grown-ups basically help the children there. I think if you see this at Instagram or TikTok or in the social media arena, you see that everybody has a competence. You can sing, you can dance, you can do whatever you want, you can cook, you can do whatever you want. And I think it's crucial to say, every child, and I think that goes to the Richard Lerner 5C model, every child has a competence, right? And you have to basically let them, under the wings of the adults, let them really grow and mentor. And if you see this later on in the startup ecosystem, you see many women, and especially in the VC arena, you don't see a lot of female founders being nurtured and mentored. And I think that's crucial, and but that has a long history, and it starts actually in school or at home, where the mother says, you can do it, try it. And I think that's an attitude a society has, right? And
let's push it a bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry, you were mentioning Israel. I think the female role is completely different than we're having here.
Exactly. And thank you for saying this, because you actually took the words out of my mouth, because, working in Silicon Valley, New York, and born and raised in Israel, in Tel Aviv, I came to Germany because, originally my family is from Germany as well. But I saw, in a business-wise, blue ocean, but in a culture-wise, something that really concerns me. I mean, back then to 7 years, of course, there is a movement and we are in a better position, but far away of seeing women leading super successful, I would say, startup companies, women that dreaming big enough, going to IPOs, having like multi-dollar or $1 billion companies, and things that we already see in Israel and we already see in Germany. In New York, and it's exactly what you mentioned. It's the culture. It's how we are raised by, it's from the schools, it's from the parents. So I'm working very hard for my kids to also keep them inside, although they are very German, They're also part of the German school system for a long time already. So it's several things that we want to step in. And this is actually, why I built WLOUNGE. Bring this, I would say, culture together and to empower more potential women, but not only women. We see also great guys that need to be flourished, need to be out there, role models, supporting women. Definitely, I see a lot of guys. My biggest supporters are also guys. So there is definitely a change. And why I'm asking you this, because you mentioned also the impact and sustainability. And the impact and sustainability was always part of values when women are building companies. You always build company for doing good, for giving back to society, to work on a challenge, on climate change. It doesn't matter how we call it. Even when I had my toy company, it was actually make the kids more, smarter, work on the educational part. So every time women build company, it's from a mission, for a vision that she has, how she can do something better. Suddenly, the sustainability and impact became a mainstream. And it's not suddenly, it's several years. But But because of COVID-19, and correct me if I'm wrong if you see something else, it's really becoming a mainstream. And a lot of corporates that we are working with, or I'm working in, asking for become more sustainable, asking to invest in more impact and sustainable companies in general. What do you think about that?
I think that's absolutely necessary, and actually, it's really interesting if you see the paper of the World Economic Forum, Unleashing the Power of Europe's Women's Entrepreneurs, driving big change. I think it goes into the interesting skill set of women, that they're not only mission driven, because many of them have to raise their children, right? And I think it's about caring, and it's about nurturing, it's about protecting something you already built or you're going to build. And it's really interesting. I mean, if you see this in the Mariana Mazzucato's new setting at the WHWO, or if you see it in her new book, Mission Economy, she's exactly asking for this. And if you see this around the world, the Sustainable Development Goals and the sustainable education requirements for 2030, it's basically the message: we have to protect our Earth as the fundament of living for humankind, right? And I think it's so simple that we have enough studies and we have enough facts to basically preserve what we have and grow in addition, but you have to be extremely careful that we are not getting to a tipping point where we can't reverse what has already been done. And I think that is something that's understood, and I think it's amazing that the young generation, Amanda Gorman, or take Greta Thunberg, the young ones, the really young ones, they do care. Right? And they say, we do have a problem, and we do have to get up, and we do have to do something about it, as you are still responsible for it. And if you see this in a transformation of generation process, system change approach, I think we really have to get the young people on board, because they have to take over and they have to take on the leadership. And we have to basically give them this the skill set to handle these big problems. And I think they're greater than before as we are driving the change and innovation process. But it's not always related to a mission. It's mainly related to shareholder value and income.
Exactly. And this is brilliant. And thank you for being like so open and share everything, because I see it as well. And this is why my involvement in the European Commission also coming from, because I see it's also how can we impact from the inside and from the outside regarding these topics as well. But you also mentioned the culture, and when it comes to the female topic, and why I'm pushing here, because I want to listen to you as a person, as a German lady, as a role model before everything. I'm still seeing brilliant ladies doing MBA, doing their master, thinking about either its career or either its family. And you're also a mother, I'm also a mother. For me, it's a shock. You know, CEO of Facebook in Israel, she has 5 kids. No one even doubt her capability. Go without saying, doing an army service. But what is your perspective on this?
I think there needs to be a systemic effort to really help women balance work life and being successful in their career, whatever it means. It doesn't have to be only business, right? It can be something else as well, to be really clear here. So I think it's appreciating the role women are taking without any payments to be a mother and running a family and going into the labor market. And if you see basically the unbalanced, rewards we're giving to women into the societies, it's really amazing. It's a given, because the cultural settings in the different countries are basically helping on that respect. But I think we have to change it. And I think in terms of female founders, I think it's really important that we understand that we help them to maybe fund their own business. So lower taxes, lower access barriers to get into the workforce, and to help them with their children keeping over the day. And I think that's critical. And I think especially in Germany, but in other countries as well, you have the pay gap. Right. And I think that for the same, basically, how do you say this? For the same work.
Same position.
Yes. You have really super unfair payment procedures or settings. And I think that has to be changed. And in addition, if you see the barriers to access to get into higher positions, I think that you have the ceiling that's the invisible ceiling, that's one, right? But it's as well that it's biased when you are coming into a higher position, that you always need these governmental requirements that women will be taken into a supervisory board or any other leadership function.
Yeah,
And
that would shock me. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And I was very happy, by the way, that I brought my kids already while being in Israel, because I don't see how can I even accept that law.
Yeah, and I think there to really change this and not to defend that we as women, as part of humankind, and close to 50% of humankind, we always have to defeat our success, and that we are capable of being successful in work and work hard and manage all the other things around us. I think we have to get away from this discussion of being a minority and always apologizing for what we do.
Exactly. I'm totally with you. And I'm really looking forward to see something like this, at least 20% of what you just mentioned coming from the German government, which I'm happy to support, by the way, because there is a movement, but it's super slow as well. For encouraging really majority or like a lot of women to step in and to build their own companies or to take a leadership position. I agree with you. So moving on with it. Yes.
Sorry, what's really, we just started a trial. It's called Update Deutschland. It's an open innovation process here in Germany. And women or young women and the whole society were open or was invited to basically deliver solutions. And it was really amazing how many people, more than 27,000, were basically involved, and over the time last year and this year, and they were building solutions on various topics. And I think that's what it is. It's giving access to education and equity. And I think for women, it's even more important, as they have a double function. They have a social business function and they have the caring function at home. Right. And if you would calculate all the tasks women are doing without being paid for, and the state would have to take over. Right. It's I think in many respects we couldn't afford it, and the state knows that. So I think
this is a big message out of here.
Yeah, and I think if you see the option we are having in, for example, in Africa and in India and in many other countries, Latin America, if women were capable of having their own income and rise to a different educational level, the prosperity in these countries, as well here in Europe, it would be amazing. And that maybe it's a huge opportunity coming to a point where I think it's amazing that the young generation is much more open to collaborate, to be open to share data, to try new models. And to include more, how do you say this, disruptive mind thinking. I think that's absolutely necessary. That when you have the digital data, and I think a system approach as well, and a privacy approach, that the digital currency gives us a huge opportunity to transform societies into a more democratized approach of sharing wealth. And that means, especially for women, a completely different approach of being included in growing new business, in helping themselves, in educating children into a complete different way, and being sustainable. Because when you see who's basically providing the textile industry, it's mainly women who shop and buy, right?
Bottom line. Yes.
I would say so. And I mean, it's interesting to see that if you see sustainability in the zero plastic approach, or the abandon of plastic in certain industries like food industry, or as well in the textile industry, I think women have to be in the driver's seat and leadership consortiums in terms of changing industries, and you mainly see there men.
You know, Brigitte, what I love in Germany and screening Germany for quite some time is that absolutely right. The next generation, millennials, Gen Z, they are bringing what we want to see here. They are much more international. They are much more open mindset. They are there to do more than the older generation. You know, we even have a name for it. We built WLOUNGE Their Leadership. It's a flagship program for women, just because there are many women that dare to do the first step, but this is where we're stepping in also as an ecosystem, also as a network, also as a role model, to really make sure that they will continue. Because we don't see enough women getting into big numbers, big successful companies. In the numbers, in the percentage, it's still not enough if we see the economy here. And this is, I would say, the biggest pain point right now.
Absolutely. I mean, if you see the Scale Up Female Founder Index, right, 2021 in the UK, or if you see the Female Startup report, I think it's really amazing. And I think that has a lot to do with the funding as well, that we see normally trust male funders more than female funders.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Like themselves. Mm-hmm.
So they're underfunded, but there are some really interesting new approaches. And I think if you take the 100,000 Entrepreneurs Program in France, or if you take Cisco's Global Problem Solvers, where women are basically equally addressed than boys or young girls. And if you see the ones from EY, the women's supporting the entrepreneurship programs, or as well on the social entrepreneurship side with the Gita Tech Alliance, I think the new generation understands that it doesn't matter if it's male or female, it really depends on the solution you're delivering. And I think that is something we have to foster. Right. And the educational systems, at least in Germany, as well on the university side, are not reflecting that we have to rebuild this system of education in that direction.
Yeah, you're right. I see it inside universities as well. But, you know, you're also an investor yourself. I'm also raising a fund with exactly that meaning, you know, from WLOUNGE to build another team to understand that if we want to be a game changer, we also need to write the checks, you know, because sometimes those VCs, which part of them are really good guys, they're not doing this unintentionally, you know, they just not aware enough. So being part of them, supporting them as well, is raising their awareness. So also we see the numbers are better, but of course far away of being enough. And I want to ask you, let's give some knowledge and tips for the female founder, the German startups, local, not local, because I know you also, like me, working internationally, not necessarily only locally. What would you invest in? What are you searching, or how you define a good startup? Because I think listening to you saying this will maybe open other people's minds how to be focused and what they need to get ready with.
I always look for the business model, or basically the concept, the idea behind it. If it's then female only or a mixed team, both is fine, right? So for example, I'm investing in Clue, the hormone tracking app in Germany, and I'm investing in Frische Post. It's local farmers support, basically in online delivery. And then I'm investing in Giving Way. It's a fundraising tool for the emerging markets. Actually, it's from Israel. I think it's not about that I'm only looking for female investors. It's and that's why I said it before. It really depends on the team, and can be a mixed team, can be male only, can be female only, but it always has to be mission driven to support the common good, right? In a certain way.
What you see in the German market, are you happy with what you see, where it's going, when the innovation is coming, the direction, this younger generation with the new startup coming? Are you happy with what you see here?
No, absolutely not. I mean, the startup association, I think, made a clear statement towards it, and the new legislation Germany was not part of in the EU is very difficult. And I think as well, Markus Sauerhammer was sent the Social Entrepreneurship Association in Germany. We need a lot of improvements in the conditions in terms of financing, in terms of access, as well to research. I think that's crucial, right?
Yeah.
And the building of an ecosystem, and I really mean it, not being competitive Munich versus Berlin or Frankfurt.
Yes,
or
please.
whatever, if it's Ulm or I don't know. I mean, everybody who's in, I think it's really crucial that we understand that if we pool financing and if we pool resources and knowledge, and we really get into the mindset that Europe as a country, as a continent, really has to make a huge effort to sustain the wealth and the growth. I think that's crucial. And if women support this in the common good of education or social matters in terms of healthcare or caring for older people or building new structures in terms of ambulant care or in terms of agriculture, name it. I think everything is fine, right? Or water safety or food safety. I mean, you can really name it. Everything is fine. The key question is, are we capable of a European, pan-European approach of fostering investments and innovation? And right now, I think we are not there, right? And we don't really enhance the ecosystem building structure support in the EU. That means between Portugal, Spain, France, the Netherlands, Germany, name it, Italy, that the really smart people in Europe really work together, and you have a transparent platform where you can exchange knowledge. Let me give an example what I think it's amazing, and I think the younger generation understand that, and Germany and the young people in Germany can be a part of that as well if they know that it exists. And that is something you asked me, could I really only basically focus on Germany? I would never do this. Right? That's one
point.
Key message is you have to look abroad. At least you have to look in Europe. But look abroad. I mean, look to the US or other countries. Where are these networks? Where are smart investors? Where are VCs or family offices where they really have the right mindset for what you want to do, right?
Bingo.
And are capable of supporting you. And as in this respect, a germ-only internal look is not helpful. I mean, you have
Very,
to...
very good point. And also to listen that from you, because I'm always saying startup that I'm part of them or supporting them is like, don't look locally. Someone is building the same thing in Silicon Valley right now, in Israel, in New York. You cannot lay only on one market. It's not healthy, and will never bring Germany to be a significant player in the international scene. You know, this is what we want to see: more success, significant success coming out of Germany. We're on the same page with this. I want to ask you a personal question. You know, I also have like a long story of entrepreneurship family in Germany, from Germany, and I want to ask you, coming from such a famous family, sometimes you feel it's advantages or disadvantages?
I think it's always, you have two sides of a medal, right?
Yes.
I think for being entrepreneurial and basically learning a lot in the environment you were born, I think that gives you, especially at this beginning of your life, a lot of strengths, and it opens a lot of doors. When you later on, and I think it's always, if you have an obligation or you feel you have an obligation to basically be consistent with what your family is doing, right? It's always, you can't.
So it's a lot of responsibility.
It's a lot of responsibility, and that, I think, goes to all the children or generations following their parents taking over a company. And I think we have many of these discussions in Germany, that you say, okay, is it something that I really can basically see myself in? Is it the right direction for the company? Is it responsible towards the employees? Can I really, with my competences, be the person who basically moves forward what we, the parents or the generations before, were building up? It always has two sides, right? And I think I'm very privileged, basically, in the supervisory position, to be part of the family, and the next generation will now take over. It's the seventh generation, and still basically guide in the family interest the growth of the company. But on the other hand, it's always, when I'm later on, maybe 70 or something like this, I for sure will go more into the sustainability area and will do there basically what I think has to be done in the emerging and developing countries.
This is amazing, and thank you for allowing me to ask you such a question, because I'm dealing with this a lot. Because if you're coming from, as you mentioned yourself, privileged things, like if you live in Silicon Valley, if you live in Israel, it's quite obviously where you're going to end up. But here in Germany, it's totally different when it comes to culture. You know, how they react and how they treat themselves, and as you mentioned, taking responsibility. But on the same time, which I really appreciate, by the way, it's like the different mentality as well. So I'm learning a lot while living here, and in a positive way. This is why I ask you if sometimes you see it as adventures and use it to promote significant things. And I know you're doing this. And coming back to mentioning that you're working in international level, also working about the foundation that you mentioned, would you like to share with us more about what the foundation is doing, because you are leading it? And I know that there is a lot of relationship with Israel, a lot of people that they are also close to mine. I was very positively surprised to hear that.
Yeah, my parents for more than 47 years are very much involved in Israel, have many, many personal friends and relationships in Israel. And When we bought Bentham Dell or Bentham Books, they were owners. Basically, the owners were from Israel, and especially in the US with Random House. It's closely linked to the Israel community and the Jewish community. And I think it's, we had the journalism school at that time. My parents were founding, and we had a lot of interest in the educational system, and we are still involved with the alumni network for founders from the program from the Bertelsmann Foundation we do know for many, many years. And I think it's building networks on a personal level as well on a business level with Israel was always important to our family. And I'm still involved in the Peace and Innovation Center in Israel, and I'm invested in the Pitango funds, and I think supporting startups in Israel, it's for me very important. For me personally, it's like my second home. And I have many friends in Israel. And I think learning from other countries, and that is something that is, I think, crucial, and understanding where they come from and try to understand their history. I think for the young generation, it's even more important, as you can do this already in the gaming industry, and you do it on TikTok and Instagram. You share global perspectives in a certain way, but building peace efforts and developing new innovative programs and building networks across cultural boundaries. I think that's super, super important. And I think Israel plays a really important role in this. And we all know that religion is important. It is basically supporting certain, how do you say, the system changes around the world. And I think there as well, I think that young generation has a huge opportunity to shift the attitude the older ones were basically trying to establish. And I really hope that the young generational entrepreneurs who build up Facebook and Netflix and all these different whatever social networks understand which role they are playing in building social systems.
Wow, this is really nice to hear. And, coming from Israel, and you mentioned people that they are very close to me. Cecile was also in the talk show as well, and we're working very closely for many years. And Chemi Perez, that really you awarded him. So is the founder of Pitango, and because also WLOUNGE is working very closely with them. I mean, I'm keeping the Israelis technology and VCs very close to Germany because we have a lot to learn from each other, and eventually we can build a big win-win here. And I know you're not only talking, but doing. Would you like to share more about the award that you gave to Chemi Perez?
Yeah, it's an award. Before the death of my father, it was called Bertelsmann Prize. Now, after the death of my father, it's called Reinhard Mohn Prize. And we always award outstanding personalities for their life work. And I think Chemi Perez, as an entrepreneur, was not only as an entrepreneur and builder of a VC, very successful. He is as well amazing in basically in taking over the responsibility of his family and his father in trying to build the peace efforts in the region. And I think that is something I have to see. It's really important as well in Germany and in Europe that the private sector is taking a role model as well in building societies, right? And being outspoken in that respect, basically protecting democracy and the stability of their countries, and really being proactive and taking over roles as a civic servant. And I think that is something that definitely Jaime does. And I think it's amazing as he's so humble and quiet and down to earth, and I really appreciate him as a person. I think that is something we have to have as leaders in our world much more. And this time it's about innovation, and I think shaping societies. And I think the award he receives this year in the fall, it's really an example of leadership in many respects.
And as you mentioned, everything starts at home. You know, he has had an amazing role model. His father, his family, as you mentioned, to take a lot of values from. So I totally agree with you. It's starting from education, starting from home. So Brigitte, how can we end up this discussion? I feel that I can speak with you forever, but we do have limited time, unfortunately. First of all, I'm really looking forward to meet you. Either Bielefeld, either Berlin, doesn't matter. You know, as you mentioned, Munich, Berlin, we are the same country. Eventually, we have to stop this, cutting or putting some limit in between where we are investing, where we are building an ecosystem, because it doesn't matter if you are a VC from Munich, you invest in Berlin and vice versa. This is the ecosystem. So I want to take some takeaways from this discussion regarding the female founder, where we are today, where we need and want to be. Think global, be global, act global, because it will make you more innovative. And you put a lot of focus on the public sector, on the private sector, which I can only emphasize that and empower that, because this is what I see that it's needed here, also comparing to other ecosystems. So last word, yes, please, Brigitte. Last words from you.
No, I think we have to encourage the young generation to shift the culture and the system approaches we're having. And you have to basically encourage them to take on the lead in being brave enough or encouraged to go ways that are not mainstream, right? And sometimes,
yes, please.
And I think being outspoken and very self-reflective, and maybe not always shying away from standing to your point of view, I think that's crucial. So just be yourself, and I think that is something I really wish for the young generation, and be outspoken and always try to reassure that you have a lot of options and you can decide on the options, right? So don't be scared to go new ways. And I think we're waiting for this.
Fantastic. Be yourself, dare to do, believe you can, raise your voice. Brigitte, I cannot say it smarter and louder than you are. So thank you so much for being here today, being in my talk show. And I'm looking forward to work together, to move things together, and to see you very soon in person as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Really great.